Hi, ladies and gentlemen. We are looking at notes 2.1, one and two-step equations. If you could take a look at page 3 of your notes package, we are going to go ahead and try to make sense of what is happening right here. So we're going to be talking about one and two-step equations. So basically, when we're solving an equation, all we're trying to do is get a variable by itself, okay? So right here, we're going to fill in some blanks that we have right here. So go ahead and fill in our information here. When we want to solve equations, essentially, all we want to do is we want to get x by itself on one side. X is a loner. X hates everyone. It's going to do whatever it can to kick everything else off of its side, okay? So how do we do this? We do inverse operations. So we do inverse. Another word for inverse is opposite. So we're going to do operations of the opposite sign. So for example, what's the opposite of addition? You should get subtraction, okay? I want you to pause and fill in the rest of this top table up here. And then once you fill in this top table right here, press play and see if you get the same answer as me, okay? Right, welcome back. So you should get that the opposite of subtraction is addition, the opposite of multiplication is division, and the opposite of division is multiplication, okay? So one key thing that you need to know is that an equation is a balance. So I want you guys to write down that equations are balances, okay? So equations are balances. Whatever you do to one side, you must do to the other side. Okay, and I also want you guys to write down and just find a spot to squeeze this in your notes. It doesn't matter where you write it in your notes, but I'm going to check to make sure that you have this. You need to also write down that equal signs separate the two sides of your equation, okay? And all of this stuff will make sense once we actually get into our different examples. Now let's take a look at some examples. In number 1, my goal is to get x by itself. Now I know that you probably can figure out what the answer is without actually showing your workout, but when we get into harder equations, like the ones that you will see in future videos, it's going to be annoying to just figure this out in your head. You're going to want to know how to do this on your own. So right here, to get this x alone, what I'm going to want to do is I want to get rid of anything that's with the x. So right here, I have a -5. Well, I don't want this -5. I want to make it nothing. So how do I make a -5 nothing? I do the opposite of subtraction. Well, the opposite of subtraction we figured out is addition. So I'm going to add 5 right here. Okay, but whatever I do to one side of my equation, I have to do to the other side of my equation. Well, what's the other side of my equation? Whatever's on the opposite side of the equal sign. So right here, the other side of my equation is the right side. It's this -2. So now, -5 and +5 should cancel each other out and give you 0. If they don't give you 0, then you did something wrong and you need to fix it. So right here I get x equals, and then right here, -2 plus 5, let's go ahead and do the scoreboard. I've got 2 points for team negative, 5 points for team positive. Team positive won by 3 points. So x equals 3. All right, so let's take a look at question number 2. In number 2, it says that 3x equals 24. Well, this is multiplication. It's 3 times x. And the x is a loner. The x hates everyone, so the x wants to get rid of the 3. Well, the opposite of multiplication, we just said, is division. So I'm going to divide by 3. Well, whatever I do to one side, I'm going to do to my other side. Well, 3 divided by 3 is 1, so I end up getting 1x. But is it necessary for me to say the 1x? Absolutely not. I can just say it's x. 3 divided by 3 gives me 1. They cancel, technically, to give me 1. And then 24 divided by 3 is 8. So that means that x equals 8. Okay? In number 3, This time, the operation that I have is division. So what's the opposite of this division right here? Well, the opposite of division is multiplication. So I'm going to multiply by 7. Well, whatever I do to one side, I do to the other side. Now, if I have a 7 in the numerator, this is technically 7 over 1, but we don't need to put 7 over 1. We'll just say it's 7. If I have a 7 in the numerator and a 7 in the denominator, they cancel each other out, and I have an x left over. So I get x equals, and then 2 times 7 is just 14. Okay, so that's how you do one-step equations. Now, when we get into some harder examples, though, there's something really important that you need to make sure to mark down. So please write down, in order to solve equations, you must get the variables on one side and the constants, which are basically just the numbers, on the other side. This is key. If you're okay with this piece right here, solving equations will be a piece of cake. Okay, so let's take a look at our example that we have here. So in this example, I've got my variable right here. This is my variable. Well, this right here is a constant, and so is this. So right now, I have constants on both the left side of my equation and on the right side of my equation, and I don't want it on both sides. So what I'm going to first do is get rid of it on my left side, because right now on my right side, all I have are constants. So if I have constants on the right side, we'll just put them all on that side, okay? So how do I do that? Well, I want to get rid of this positive 4. And since this is a positive 4, I want to make it nothing. I want to make it 0. Well, in order to get rid of a positive 4, I can subtract 4. But whatever I do to one side of my equation, remember this whole piece right here is the left side of my equation because it's on the left side of my equals sign right here. Whatever I do on one side of my equation, I have to do on the other. So if I subtract 4 here, I'm going to subtract 4 here. Well, when I do that, my 4's cancel out because 4 minus 4 is 0. So I'm left over with negative x over 5 equals, let's do our scoreboard really quickly for this. Team negative 1, 1 point, team negative 1, 4 points. So this will give me negative 5. Okay, so now what do I need to do in order to get this x alone? Well, I have division here, and I don't want division, so I'm going to multiply. I'm going to get rid of the division by multiplying. But I also want this negative to go away. So what do I multiply a negative by to cancel it out? Another negative, because a negative times a negative will give me the positive that I'm looking for. Whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. Okay? Again, if you're confused about anything at all, first of all, rewind it and rewatch whatever might be confusing to you. It might make more sense if you see it a second time or a third time. But also write yourself some notes for some questions that you might have while you're learning about stuff, and then you can ask me next time you see me in class. Okay? So this 5 and this 5 cancel, right? Because 5 divided by 5 is 1. And this negative and this negative cancel. So I'm left over with an x. And now I just do negative 5 times negative 5, which is 25. Okay? All right, so let's take a look at the next example that we have here. In this example, I'm going to identify what the variable is that I want to get alone. Now I have a constant right here, so I want to get rid of this 4.7. Well, since it's a positive 4.7, I'm going to subtract 4.7. Well, whatever I do to one side of my equation, I do to the other side of my equation. So this 4.7 and this minus 4.7 cancel out. Here's the other side of my equation. So I end up getting 0.25x is left over right here, right? I just copy it down, okay? And then 6.2 minus 4.7 is going to give me 1.5, okay? So then what do I need to do right here? Well, since this right here is multiplication, I want to get rid of it. Well, what's the opposite of multiplication? It's division. So I'm going to divide both sides by 0.25. Okay, and when I type that into my calculator, I'll end up getting x equals, and then I will get 6. Okay, all right, let's take a look at our last example. Again, right here, my a value is my variable. So this is what I want to get alone, okay? Well, the constant that I have here is this -4. So how do I get rid of this -4? The opposite of a -4 is a +4, because -4 plus 4 is 0. They cancel out. That's what I want. And then the other side of my equation, remember the equal sign separates it, okay? So if I add 4 on my left side, I want to add 4 to my right side right here, okay? So this -4 and this +4 cancel out. Be really careful though, when you bring this piece down, be aware that it's a -a, not just a, and it's equal to 9. Okay, well, if this is -a, this is technically -1a. So how do I get rid of a -1? If it's multiplication, I do the opposite of multiplication, which is division. So I'm going to divide both sides by -1. -1 divided by -1 is just 1, so I get 1a, or just a, and then a positive divided by a negative is a negative. So my answer here is a equals -9. Okay, and that's all we're going to do for this video. We're going to finish up the rest of these notes next time I see you in class, but that's all I need you guys to do for this video. Remember, as always, if you have questions, make sure you write them down and ask me next time I see you in class. All right, have a good night.